Funny thing about revenge, you never really plan for it. But once it starts, it flows like water downhill. And let me tell you, the downhill ended with my ex-wife crying in court and her hotshot lawyer brother disbarred. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. My name's Ethan. 38. Freelance sound designer. Full-time dad. Or I was until my ex-wife decided my career wasn't structured enough for our daughter, Mia. That came out of her mouth. Structured. As if raising a kind, intelligent 7-year-old while designing ambient audio for video games and documentaries is chaos incarnate. Let me set the stage. Rachel and I divorced 2 years ago. It was civil at first. We agreed to split custody 50-50. Mia would spend half the week with me in my modest apartment filled with Lego traps and toast crumbs, and the other half at Rachel's place, which looked like a West Elm showroom had a baby with a courtroom. Everything was beige and steel and smelled like eucalyptus. Even the dog. Rachel is a corporate lawyer. Very high-functioning, high-heels-at-home type. Her brother Damien? Big-shot partner at a firm so polished you need sunglasses just to read their website. They both speak in legalese even when they order food. I'd like to motion for extra guac on the side, Your Honor. Everything was stable until Mia made an offhand comment one day. Mom says your job isn't a real job. I laughed, shrugged it off. But then came the emails. And then came the clause. Turns out, when we signed the original custody agreement, Damien helped Rachel draft it. I was naive. Trusted her. Didn't realize they'd slipped in a clause buried 32 pages deep that allowed her to challenge custody if domestic conditions deviate from a structured educational or developmental standard. Translation: if she decided I was too weird, too broke, or too human, she could file for full custody. And she did. She brought up my erratic income, freelance life, baby, claimed Mia had no academic stimulation at my place because I let her build a cardboard city instead of reciting multiplication tables on cue, and that my apartment wasn't predictable enough. That was her phrasing. Predictable. The judge didn't throw it out. Apparently, Damien had cloaked it in just enough legal fog to pass the sniff test. Rachel had a strong case, she had money, she had her brother in an expensive suit, and I had half a bowl of cereal in the sink and a daughter who loved building planets out of Play-Doh. Temporary custody was granted. To her. They took Mia. Just like that. No warning. 1 week I was packing lunchboxes and watching movies with her curled up under my arm. The next I was standing in a too-quiet apartment, staring at her empty sneakers by the door like they were museum artifacts. And you know what the worst part was? The smug smile on Damien's face when the ruling hit. That slick, slow smile like he'd just checkmated a toddler. That was the moment I stopped grieving and started plotting. You want structured? Fine. Let's make it a campaign. But I wouldn't fight them in court. Oh no. That's where they lived, thrived. I would hit them where they never expected. Public opinion. Reputation. Family secrets. All served cold. See, I may be a non-traditional parent, but I know how to tell a story. And I was about to write the best damn one of my life. After the ruling, I spent a week trying to function like a normal human being. I'd wake up, go to pour Mia a glass of orange juice, and realize halfway through she wasn't there. I'd still check my phone for photos to send her. Habit. Muscle memory. Rachel blocked my number the day after the court hearing. Just blocked me. Didn't tell Mia either. My calls went straight to voicemail, then eventually just stopped going through altogether. I was cut off like a bad subscription. But grief, when you let it ferment, turns into something else. I wasn't crying anymore. I was listening. And I was remembering someone I hadn't called in years. Enter Jonas Keller. We met back in college. He studied computer science. I studied audio design. He was the guy who could clone a professor's keycard with a gum wrapper and a magnetic strip and then build you a digital soundboard just to remix fart noises. When I told him what happened, he didn't ask, "Are you okay?" or "What's the legal route?" Nope. Jonas said one thing. "You want to ruin her brother?" I sipped my bourbon. Absolutely. Jonas works freelance now too, but in his case that means cybersecurity consulting for companies who don't ask too many questions. He's got a whole setup in his garage that looks like a cross between a hacker's lair and a Radio Shack with ADHD. We started small. Jonas helped me set up burner email accounts. Not one. Not two. 9. Each with a different persona. One posing as a potential client to Damien's firm. Another as a legal student seeking mentorship. 2 more infiltrated parenting groups where Rachel posted her curated, organic, Whole Foods approved life. I started building a character dossier on her. Nothing illegal. Just digital anthropology. Instagram? She posted a #WineWednesday pic with a caption like "Single Mom Life, LOL." Facebook? Bragging about her clean break and how much better Mia was sleeping now. Yelp? 1-star review from a barista about how she berated a cashier for putting almond milk in her coffee instead of oat. It painted a picture, not of a villain. No, villains are too easy. She was self-righteous. The kind of person who believed she was doing the right thing while steamrolling anyone who didn't fit her definition of order. She didn't destroy my life because she hated me. She destroyed it because I embarrassed her. That's when Jonas found it. A database leak from a private firm Damien once consulted for. Years old. Hidden behind layers of misdirection. But in the metadata of one internal memo, Jonas found a name attached to a payout, Damien Green. Followed by structured settlement negotiation, internal review bypass approved. I didn't know what that meant at first. Jonas did. He paid off a claimant. Quietly. Under the table. That's a big no-no. We cross-referenced the case. It was a wrongful termination lawsuit. A young paralegal accused a partner, Damien's partner, of harassment and wrongful firing. It never made it to court. Because Damien buried it. That was our first bullet. I told Jonas not to release anything yet. We needed a plan. I wasn't interested in burning them fast. I wanted them to suffer long. So we started crafting the narrative. Step 1, expose Damien, not directly, but through leaks. An anonymous tip here. A flagged discrepancy there. A whistleblower blog post written from the perspective of an industry insider questioning firm ethics. And while we stirred the pot, I launched something else. A podcast. Fathers Without Rights. I didn't use my name. Just my voice. And I told my story, not all the details, but the emotional truth. Every episode featured a dad like me. And people listened. They wrote in. Shared it. Donated. I told Jonas, let's give her the court win. Let her think she's safe. Because when it fell apart, it wouldn't be in the courtroom. It would be in front of the whole damn internet. So here's the thing about Rachel, she underestimated me because I didn't fight back immediately. She thought I'd slink off into the shadows, maybe write a passive-aggressive Facebook post, cry into a couch cushion, and eventually fade out of Mia's life like a badly written sitcom dad. But no, what I was doing was planning. And planning quietly, which, in this age of oversharing, is practically a superpower. Now, let me take you back to something seemingly trivial, Mia's cardboard city. She and I spent 3 weekends building it in my living room, a sprawling mess of cereal boxes, paper towel tubes, duct tape skyscrapers, and even a functional pulley system made with an old shoelace. Rachel hated it. Said it was chaotic. Called it a fire hazard during one of her lawyered-up custody hearings. But Mia loved it. She called it Coleopolis. That cardboard city became the emotional center of my plan. You see, while Jonas and I were compiling data on Damien, his shady finances, his under-the-table settlements, his very suspicious vacation charges to the firm's expense account, I needed something more human, more relatable. Something people could grab onto, something real. So I turned Coleopolis into content. I uploaded a photo of Mia's cardboard city to the anonymous podcast account with the caption, "This is what my daughter built the weekend before I lost her in court." Because her mom's lawyer brother wrote a clause that said cardboard cities don't count as educational. The post exploded. Reddit got hold of it. Then Twitter. A lawyer in Minnesota messaged the account and said, "Is this real? Because I've seen 3 dads this month get steamrolled by legal clauses written like this." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The internet responded for me. By the end of the week, there were memes. One had a crying Rachel lookalike in a courtroom saying he let her use glitter. Monster. Another had Damien photoshopped into a Monopoly box titled Custody, the game of screwing dad. We were getting traction. But that wasn't the goal. That was just the decoy. While the podcast and social media storm built public sympathy for the dad who lost custody over cardboard, Jonas and I focused on the internal campaign. He helped me trace Damien's web of shell companies. Turns out he was funneling consulting fees through a Delaware LLC to cover up conflicts of interest. We also found out something delicious. Damien had been billing the hours he spent on Rachel's case to other clients. I'll repeat that. He was fraudulently charging his sister's custody battle to actual, paying corporate clients. Jonas laughed so hard when he read that spreadsheet he choked on his sandwich. "This guy's a crook and lazy," he said. "A rare combo." We weren't ready to strike yet, but the chessboard was shaping up nicely. One email here, one leak there, a few well-placed messages to rival firms and legal watchdog groups. Meanwhile, Rachel? She was doubling down on the PR fantasy. She had Mia posing in matching outfits for a Mommy and Me yoga blog, talking about single motherhood like she was navigating a war zone instead of parenting with a full-time nanny and a Tesla. She still hadn't unblocked me, but I knew she was watching, because she made a burner account to follow the podcast. How'd I know it was her? She used the name BK3 and Mia used to call her BK3 when she couldn't pronounce Rachel's initials. Slip-ups like that? They're gold. So I left a message in the next podcast episode. Just for her. A throwaway line near the end. You can take away someone's time, their home, their rights. But if they build the city once, they can build it again. This time with a stronger foundation. It wasn't just metaphor. It was a signal. Because the foundation of Rachel and Damien's little empire? Oh, it was cracking. And I was bringing the whole thing down. I always wondered what it would feel like to watch your enemy fall apart in real time. Turns out, it feels like sipping coffee during a slow-motion train wreck that you caused, while wearing sunglasses and narrating the whole thing like David Attenborough. Let me explain. After the Coleopolis post went viral and the podcast gained traction, I noticed Rachel started behaving differently. Not toward me, obviously. I was still blocked on everything except the occasional legal notice she had her assistant send like I was some distant cousin asking for money. But publicly? She was sweating. She deleted half her Instagram captions, made her Facebook private, switched her Pinterest boards from public to hidden. Yes, Pinterest. As if hiding her vision board for neutral divorce co-parenting aesthetics was going to save her. She knew the tides were turning. The funny thing is, she still thought I was acting alone. She didn't know about Jonas, or the fact that we had full access to her home security system, which she had forgotten I set up when we were still married. A Nest doorbell, 2 interior cams synced to cloud storage, and a baby monitor in Mia's room that had never been disabled. Now, don't get nervous. I didn't watch her changing clothes or anything gross. This wasn't a creeper mission. This was evidence collection. See, she had no idea the cams were still uploading. And those uploads? They showed things like Rachel yelling at Mia to stop talking about dad so much, or her new boyfriend, some finance bro named Kyle, mocking Mia's drawings because they look like garbage. One video broke me. Mia was sitting alone on the couch, quietly playing with cardboard pieces she tried to save from Coleopolis. She whispered, "Maybe I'll build a smaller city here. Just for me." That night, I downloaded the clip, muted it, and overlaid a soft instrumental track. Then I titled it, What They Call Unstructured. Uploaded it to the podcast feed as a bonus episode. 3 days later, 500,000 views. Dozens of parenting forums picked it up. Mental health professionals started commenting on it. This child isn't unstimulated, she's surviving an emotionally repressed environment. This is what happens when children become trophies. Boom. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ethan, this is all great, but where's the revenge? Where's the juicy downfall? Patience. I said it would be cruel. Because while Rachel was watching her online image crumble, Damien was getting nervous. His law firm's compliance officer emailed a few internal inquiries. A corporate client suddenly requested itemized billing logs for the past year. One partner, probably one with a soul left, forwarded a memo internally asking who authorized the reallocation of travel expenses in case number 094? You know who did? Damien. And thanks to Jonas, we had the metadata on that document showing it had been accessed and modified on the same day Damien filed court paperwork for Rachel's custody case. Whoops. But here's the real twist, we didn't send the evidence to the firm yet. No, we sent it to a legal podcast hosted by a former prosecutor with a massive following and a bone to pick with unethical lawyers. She made Damien her episode's centerpiece, billing the system when family law gets personal. Names were redacted. But anyone in the industry could connect the dots, including Damien's own clients. By the end of the week, 3 of them dropped him. 2 filed ethics complaints. And Rachel? She posted a now-deleted Instagram story that said, "Loyalty is dead." All I've ever done is protect my daughter and I'm being attacked for it. Shame on everyone. I screenshotted it, sent it to Jonas. He replied with, "Wow." She hit the manipulative martyr stage. We're ahead of schedule. The cracks were forming. The beautiful, symmetrical life Rachel had built was starting to collapse. And the best part? I hadn't even mentioned Daniel Spence yet. That name's important. Very important. But I'll save it for the next part. Because that's when this whole thing goes from personal to criminal. I didn't plan for Daniel Spence to be the tipping point. But like a lot of good things in life, crispy bacon, the last-minute goal, accidentally going viral, it just sort of happened. So, who is Daniel Spence? Officially, a licensed realtor. Specializes in expedited property transitions. Unofficially, a greaseball with teeth too white for someone working in middle-market real estate. The kind of guy who wears cologne to Zoom meetings and calls himself a deal architect. Jonas found him by accident. We were combing through Rachel's bank records. Again, legally accessed through our old joint account she forgot to close. And there were a few wire transfers we didn't recognize. They were labeled as consulting retainers. $3,200 here, $5,000 there. One of them went to a company called DS Home Solutions. Jonas clicked the website. Up popped Daniel's smug mug, standing in front of a sold sign like he was auditioning for Selling Sunset. Spokane Edition. We ran a deeper check. That's when things got interesting. Daniel had worked with Damian Green before, several times, all in quick sale situations where the seller was, surprise, a recently divorced or divorcing woman, often with kids, often under legal duress. Every single time, the property was liquidated below market for convenience. And guess who bought 2 of those properties? A holding company registered under Damian's wife's maiden name. Ladies and gentlemen, we had ourselves a scheme. And it got better. Because guess who had a property evaluation scheduled the following week? My old house. Our house. The one I had lovingly refinished. Tile by tile. While Rachel sipped kombucha on the porch and scrolled Zillow for neighborhoods with better schools. How did I know? Nest camera. Daniel showed up in my driveway, clipboarding it up like a man with something to hide. Rachel wasn't home. But Kyle, the discount finance bro she was now dating, let him in. I watched the whole thing from my phone, sitting in a cafe with Jonas, sipping an oat milk latte like the emotionally stable villain I was becoming. Daniel took pictures, discussed staging. He even said this, and I quote, "Yeah, list it at $460, but we'll drop to $410 if we get a cash buyer fast. Gotta make it look like a win." Jonas hit record. We had audio, timestamps, everything. I called my lawyer. A different one. Not the sad sack who lost me custody. No, this guy was a specialist in fraud, forgery, and financial crimes. A real bulldog. His name was Russell. He wore elbow patch blazers and smelled like litigation. Russell filed a motion that day. See, remember that sneaky refinance clause Rachel used to try and lock me out? Turns out she forged my signature when she tried to refinance the house again. This time to pull equity for the sale, which is a federal crime when VA loans and custody are involved. Oops. Russell compiled the footage, the signatures, and the financial records and walked them straight to the fraud department at our bank. They opened a case file. Then he walked it over to the county clerk's office and filed a property dispute and fraud alert that put a hard stop on any legal sale of the house. Within 24 hours, the sale was frozen. Rachel got a call from her broker. Then another from the bank. Then, God bless karma, from Daniel, asking why her husband's lawyer just nuked the transaction. She didn't know yet, but I was back, and she'd be lucky to keep her car at the end of this. I waited, didn't text, didn't gloat. Then, a few days later, I got the message I'd been expecting. "Rachel, we need to talk. Please, it's about the house. Call me." I didn't respond. Instead, I sent her a single email. One sentence. "Who is Daniel Spence?" The typing bubble popped up. disappeared, popped up again, then nothing. She knew. She knew I knew. And that was before the FBI called me. But we'll save that for next time. You ever get a phone call that makes your stomach drop? Not out of fear, but out of validation? Like, the universe finally confirming you weren't crazy this whole time? That was the FBI. Well, technically, Agent Patel from the Financial Crimes Division. But close enough. The call came 2 days after I sent Rachel the "Who is Daniel Spence?" email. She never responded. But apparently someone else did. Russell, my new legal pitbull, had forwarded our file to a friend at the state AG's office. That friend passed it along to a contact at the bureau. Apparently, forged VA loan applications, fraudulent property sales, and money being funneled through fake holding companies across state lines get flagged with big red arrows. Who knew? Agent Patel was professional. Cool. The kind of woman who probably has a badge, a gun, and an inbox that looks like a Wall Street scandal graveyard. Mr. Cole, she said, we're currently investigating multiple complaints related to real estate fraud involving Daniel Spence and an associate named Damian Green. Your name came up in the supporting documents. I stayed calm. Took a sip of water. I'm happy to cooperate. And boy, did I. Over the next few days, I gave Agent Patel everything. The camera footage of Daniel in my house. The forged refinance application with Rachel's attempt at my signature, which looked like a drunk seagull dipped a wing in ink. The wire transfers to DS Home Solutions. The podcast episode timestamps correlating with the sale attempt. The social media messages that indirectly implicated Rachel's knowledge of it all. And the kicker, Jonas found that Rachel had used my military status to access certain VA benefits during the sale prep, which is fraud, by the way, if you're divorced and not authorized. Agent Patel was impressed. You kept good records. I was told I wasn't structured enough, I said, and I swear I heard her laugh. Meanwhile, Rachel was falling apart like a Costco patio set in a hurricane. She sent 2 emails. I ignored them. Then she tried calling. From a new number. I let it ring. Left me a voicemail sounding like someone who just found out the IRS doesn't do payment plans. Ethan, can we just talk, please? Things got complicated. Damian said it was legal. He said I'd be protected. I didn't know about the federal stuff. Please, I don't want Mia to Click. She said Mia. Used her name like a shield. And I felt it, that tug in my chest. But it didn't stop me. Because the one thing I never did during all this was use Mia as a pawn. That was her move. Damian's move. Mine? I used truth. Cold, hard, timestamped truth. That weekend, Damian's firm released a statement saying he was on administrative leave pending internal review. Translation, he was cooked. I got a heads up from Russell that formal disbarment proceedings were likely. Apparently, the firm's compliance team had been investigating other complaints, and ours was just the brick that broke the marble countertop. Even better? Jonas, that beautiful digital gremlin, uncovered a document where Damian had listed billable hours for Rachel's case under an unrelated corporate litigation client. Fraud. And that client? A national healthcare provider with a legal team so large they don't sue, they devour. The firm started bleeding clients. Rachel started bleeding followers. On Monday morning, I walked into the county recorder's office and filed an injunction preventing any transfer or refinancing of the house without my explicit written consent. The clerk stamped it. Done. Legally bulletproof. That afternoon, Rachel tried showing up at Mia's school without prior notice. She'd always had full access until now. I'd submitted the custody paperwork update. With the fraud allegations under federal review, temporary custody returned to me pending further investigation. The school called me. I picked Mia up early. When she saw me, she dropped her backpack and ran across the lawn yelling, "Dad." I don't cry easily. But I teared up then. I let her choose dinner that night. She picked pancakes. We made them together and built a new cardboard tower while they cooked. "Can I make Coleopolis again?" she asked. We never stopped, I said. But I wasn't finished yet. Rachel still thought this was about the house. About revenge. About payback. She didn't realize it was bigger than her now. This wasn't just about taking her down. This was about exposing a system built by arrogant men like Damian and sustained by people like Rachel who thought doing the wrong thing was fine as long as it was wrapped in paperwork and smiles. When I started the podcast, it was therapy. A way to talk through the pain without screaming into my pillow or rage texting Rachel about how unfair it all was. It was anonymous, quiet, and most importantly, controlled. It was a digital echo chamber where I was both the voice and the audience. But after everything with Damien, Daniel, the FBI, it was time to open the floodgates. I called Jonas one evening while Mia was asleep, curled up on the couch in her Star Wars pajamas. Her cardboard city was under reconstruction. She'd added a post office and named the postmaster Mr. Bubbles. Kids are resilient. I was less so. I think it's time, I said. You mean go public? Yeah. Name names. Tell the story. Jonas was quiet for a second, then said, let's make it count. We spent the next week rebuilding the podcast feed from scratch. New logo. New theme music. Jonas even pulled a favor from a friend and got us a professional narrator for the intro, some dude with a voice so deep it made Morgan Freeman sound like a teenager. Episode title, The Clause, a legal loophole that stole my daughter. Runtime, 56 minutes. Structure. Act 1, the backstory. The divorce, the clause Damien buried in the paperwork, the courtroom ambush. Act 2, the emotional fallout. Losing Mia. The grief. The silence. The system that enabled it. Act 3, the revenge. The burner accounts, the surveillance, the forged documents, the real estate scheme. Act 4, the names. Damien Green. Rachel Green. Daniel Spence. DS Home Solutions. The firm. The fraud. The FBI investigation. Act V, the call to action. A message to fathers, to the courts, to anyone who'd been bulldozed by legal manipulation, you're not alone. And you're not powerless. I ended the episode with a simple line. You can take my time. My house. Even my daughter. But the truth? You can't redact that. We hit publish on a Thursday night at 9 p.m. By Friday morning, it had 17,000 downloads. By Sunday, over 100,000. By the following week, national coverage. Turns out, people love a good David versus Goliath story. Especially when Goliath is a white-collar sociopath who forges VA documents and bills his sister's custody case to a children's cancer foundation. Reddit went nuclear. Twitter turned it into a meme fest. My favorite was a split screen. Left, Damien in a suit with the caption, I am the law. Right, me in sweatpants, holding a mic. You sure about that? Parenting blogs shared it. Divorce attorneys dissected it. A family court judge in Oregon even cited the episode in a ruling, according to a lawyer who emailed me. And Rachel? Oh, Rachel. She posted a 900-word Facebook open letter that read like a rejected Hallmark monologue. She accused me of weaponizing our private struggle for internet clout, claimed she was misled by professionals Reed, Damien, and said she only ever wanted what was best for Mia. But nobody bought it. Because in the age of receipts, I had them all. The emails. The texts, the audio, the video, the forged forms, the financial transfers, and most damning of all, her own voice caught on Nest Audio saying, if he doesn't fight it, it's not technically stealing. That was the soundbite every news outlet used. I didn't have to defend myself anymore. The world did it for me. Rachel lost her job within a week. Her firm claimed it was amicable, but an inside source, hi again, Jonas, told me they were trying to salvage their public image before stockholders got jumpy. Daniel Spence's real estate license was under review, and Damien? Well, it started with a knock. Not on my door, on Damien's. According to Jonas, who, at this point, had more sources than a newsroom, 2 federal agents showed up at Damien's gated townhouse at exactly 7:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. You know, the perfect hour for unannounced questions, stale coffee, and full-blown panic. He wasn't arrested. Not yet. But they served him with a subpoena. A real one. The kind you can't crumple into a trash can and pretend never existed. They wanted documents, billing records, email threads, internal memos. They also wanted his laptop and personal cell phone. Jonas saw a clip on a private legal Slack channel later that day. Some intern had filmed Damien pacing in his office, red-faced, hand trembling as he took a call. The caption just said, never seen green sweat before. Now he's Niagara Falls. It was beautiful. Rachel, meanwhile, went quiet. Deafeningly so. No social media posts. No blog updates. No PR statements from her firm because, well, she didn't work there anymore. But silence doesn't mean peace. Because Mia's school counselor called me 2 days later. Said Mia had been withdrawn, temporarily relocated to stay with extended family. Translation, Rachel ran. She took Mia and disappeared, probably hoping to dodge media attention or maybe just buying time while she begged someone, anyone, to clean up the mess. She didn't know it yet, but that was the worst move she could have made. Because remember the clause she weaponized? The one buried in our custody agreement about domestic conditions? Well, that clause works both ways. Russell, being the legal velociraptor that he is, filed an emergency custody motion based on flight risk, instability, and exposure to criminal activity. We included statements from the podcast audience, journalists, Mia's own teachers, and yes, the FBI's ongoing investigation into the financial conspiracy involving Damien and Spence. The judge scheduled a hearing in 48 hours. Rachel had no legal representation by then. Damien was on administrative leave, under federal scrutiny, and Spence had ghosted everyone like a bad Tinder date with 3 warrants. She showed up to the courthouse alone. Hair tied back. No makeup. No smile. Just a gray blazer that looked like it hadn't seen an iron in a week and eyes that had seen reality. When she saw me, she actually flinched. I didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. I wore the same suit I got married in, poetic, I know, and let Russell do the talking. The judge didn't need long. Full custody granted to me. Supervised visitation for Rachel. Pending psychological evaluation. And when Mia walked out of the courtroom with me, her little hand wrapped around mine, she whispered, "Do I get to go home now?" "Yeah, baby," I said. "We're going home." Later that week, the Department of Justice issued a formal press release. Attorney Damien Green under investigation for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, legal malpractice, and misuse of federal housing documentation. Spence was already talking to avoid jail time. Rachel wasn't named, but everyone knew. That Friday, I uploaded one final podcast episode. Title, The Clause Rewritten. I told the story from start to finish. No redactions. No vagueness. I used our names. Our real voices. I released the court audio, public record, and ended with a reading of the judge's final order. Then I said, "For anyone who's been silenced by fine print, by money, by power, you're not crazy. And if you're patient, if you're smart, and if you're relentless, they fall." It hit 1 million downloads in 3 days. Came in the form of a letter. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a voicemail at 2 a.m. after too many glasses of fake organic wine. No. Rachel sent a typed, 2-page letter folded into thirds, tucked into a plain white envelope, and dropped off at my door by a delivery service. She didn't sign it, "Love, Rachel." She didn't sign it at all. The envelope just had one word printed neatly on the front in her handwriting. Mia. Cute. Manipulative, but cute. I read the letter once, then again. Then I made a cup of coffee, stared at it for 10 minutes, and read it a third time. Let me sum it up for you. I never meant for things to get this far. I trusted Damien because he's my brother. I didn't know about the full implications of the refinance. You were always a good dad. I just didn't see how much that mattered. Maybe someday, for Mia's sake, we can forgive each other. It was 2 pages of guilt-laced word salad, half confession, half PR statement. It wasn't an apology. An apology is, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I hurt you. I accept the consequences." What she gave me was damage control. I didn't respond. Not right away. Because at that point, Rachel had lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her social credibility, her lawyer brother, who, by the way, had just pled guilty to federal fraud charges in exchange for reduced sentencing. And now, custody of her daughter. All she had left was regret, and regret is a lonely roommate. But still, for Mia's sake, I agreed to a supervised visit. It happened at a child-friendly facility with pastel-colored walls and staff trained in making emotionally complex reunions feel like recess. I sat in the observation room behind one-way glass while Mia built a Lego rocket with a therapist. Rachel walked in 15 minutes late. She looked smaller. I don't mean physically. She was still tall, sharp, styled. But the gravity she used to carry, the air of authority, of having life figured out in a color-coded spreadsheet, it was gone. She looked like someone walking underwater, just trying to breathe. Mia turned, saw her, and hesitated, then gave a soft wave. Rachel smiled and crouched down. "Hey, love bug." Mia didn't run to her. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just said, "Hi, Mom," and turned back to her Lego rocket. 5 minutes passed before Rachel started tearing up. Not loudly, just this slow, leaking kind of grief. She wiped her eyes and smiled through it. Said all the things you're supposed to say. "I missed you. I'm sorry I haven't been around. Daddy says you're doing amazing things." That part made me blink, because I'd never said that to Mia. Rachel was trying, fumbling her way through human emotion like someone who learned feelings from reading HR manuals. And I could tell. She really did regret what she'd done. But here's the thing. Some damage can't be undone. Some bridges don't burn. They collapse. And some apologies show up far too late to matter. After the visit, the therapist asked if I wanted to say anything to Rachel. I said yes. Walked into the room while Mia was out getting a juice box. Rachel stood up. Eyes puffy. Voice soft. "Thank you for letting me see her." I nodded. "She's doing well. I can tell," she said. "You've always been good with her." Another long pause. Then she said, "I hope someday we can, talk. Not about the past. Just talk." I looked her in the eye and said, "You built your world out of control and conditions. I built mine out of cardboard and trust. One survived. The other didn't." She didn't respond, just nodded slowly and sat back down. I left, and it felt clean. Not triumphant. Not angry. Just finished. The next day, I tore the letter in half and dropped it in the recycling bin. Not because I was angry, but because it didn't belong in our story anymore. I used to think revenge would feel like fireworks. Loud, bright, explosive. The kind of thing that ends with applause and ashes. But that's not how it feels at all. It feels like standing in a quiet kitchen at 7:15 in the morning, flipping pancakes while your daughter sits at the table in fuzzy socks, drawing a map of a cardboard city she renamed Coleopolis Prime. It feels like peace. Not because you destroyed the people who hurt you, but because they can't touch you anymore. It's been 6 months since the final hearing. Mia and I moved to a smaller town an hour away. Quieter. Greener. Less traffic. More stars. I bought a fixer-upper with creaky floors and a backyard full of overgrown shrubs that she insists are secret passageways. Every weekend, we pick a room and work on it. Paint. Sand. Fix. Build. We don't talk about her mom much. Sometimes Mia asks questions. I answer them honestly but gently. I never tell her about the forged signatures or the schemes or how close I came to losing her for good. I don't want her to remember this as the time her family broke. I want her to remember this as the time she and her dad built a rocket out of PVC pipe and painted her bedroom like a galaxy. The podcast? Still going. But it's different now. No more rants. No more exposés. Now it's a platform. I let other fathers speak. Teachers. Social workers. Judges who've seen what unchecked power does to families. We're not angry. We're aware. We're not hunting villains. We're rewriting systems. And the truth? That's the part that lasted longer than the revenge. That's what people remember. Not how I caught Rachel and Damien and Spence in a net of their own lies, but how I told the story without turning bitter. Because once you let bitterness in, it builds its own city inside you. And I already had one of those. Coleopolis Prime has evolved. It now spans 2 rooms, complete with a Lego monorail and a justice center made entirely out of recycled Amazon boxes. Mia made signs for every building. One of them's called the Room of Second Chances. Another one? The Department of Apologies that took too long. She's smarter than I'll ever be. Sometimes I still think about Rachel. I hear she's living with her parents again. Seeing a therapist. Trying to rebuild. I don't hate her. Not anymore. Because hating her would mean she still lives rent-free in my mind. And I already had enough tenants there when all this began. So if you've been following this story, waiting for the perfect ending, the last twist, the final punchline, here it is. I didn't win because I destroyed them. I won because they couldn't destroy me. And if you're someone who's been underestimated, silenced, erased, remember this. You don't have to shout. You don't have to beg. You don't even have to fight back on their terms. You just have to outlast them. Build your city. Let them try to tear it down. And then, build it again. That's it. The story's told. The arc is closed. But if you ever find yourself backed into a corner by people who think the system will protect them, pull out your own blueprint. Because cardboard may be flimsy, but in the right hands it becomes unbreakable. And revenge? Sometimes it looks like justice. Sometimes it looks like a courtroom. But the best kind? It looks like pancakes at sunrise. And a kid who's finally fully home.